Good afternoon, everyone. We hope you have strengthened your business further with the IHS Virtual 2, which is powered by GIA. And we really hope that all exhibitors and visitors are having a very fruitful show. We welcome you to this exclusive series of theme based knowledge sessions. And we truly hope that these informative, educative lineup of sessions, your experience at IHS Virtual becomes more enriching. Today's session is with Rohan Shah, and it's with the topic, I guess, the burning topic of last week, which is PMLA, and which has worried, I guess, our entire jewelry fraternity as to what its impact is going to be on the trade going forward. There are some clarifications which have come from the government, and to take you in detail about what this really means for our industry, we have Rohan Shah with us today. Rohan is no, I guess, newcomer to this industry. I guess whether it's on the diamond side, the retail side, manufacturer side, he's worked with the council and several other trade bodies in various capacities. So he knows our trade, I would say, inside out. And most people that I speak to, oh, I spoke to Rohan about this matter. So Rohan is, I would say, an expert which needs no introduction. But having said that, he's received several accolades over the year. He has also been appointed by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry in India as India's representative and governor on the board of Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia. He was awarded the Indian Tax Lawyer of the Year at the Legal Era Awards in 2019. And he has been a great supporter to GJPC over the years on crucial law related issues. So, without further ado, over to you, Rohan, to take our audience through PMLA and what it means for our industry.
Thank you so much, Colin. And as always, a great pleasure to be able to interact with the industry. Sadly, it always seems to come in the time of some crisis. But let me say that the sort of crisis people thought had arisen because of this notification of 28 December 2020, with the clarifications which have come yesterday, I personally think that we don't need to be so stressed. I think many of the issues are addressed by the clarifications which have come. So if we just go to the presentation, and if we see slide 1 on the presentation, can we bring up the slide? Yeah, could you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So as most of you know, the notification came on 28 December 2020. Under the notification, the worst case scenario everybody thought which had happened is that now the entire industry had been made a reporting entity. So whether you are dealing in precious metals, precious stones, and there is a international clarification that precious metals and precious stones includes jewelry, that you now were required to maintain a KYC for every transaction over 50,000, that you had to file monthly returns, and that therefore every transaction now would either require you to do a KYC, or you would have to, of course, report it. And then even in terms of suspicious transactions, you had to in turn inform the authorities. I think that was a worst case scenario that some people were talking about and predicting. The clarifications which have come yesterday, and in this slide, we have put up those clarifications which have emerged from the Press Information Bureau of India and also from the authorities in English, that they have clarified that firstly, there is no new compliance under PMLA which you are required to undertake after 28th December 2020, which you were not undertaking before. And they've also clarified that it is only in those transactions where the transaction is a cash transaction over 10 lakhs that you have to do this compliance in relation to that transaction. So it is only transactions where you have transacted in cash with a customer, uh, and the amount of that has gone over 10 lakhs of rupees, that you need to be concerned about compliances under the PMLA. Now, what government is also aware of is that under the income tax, we already have the monetary threshold of 2 lakhs of rupees, where if we transact in cash above 2 lakhs, then we have a KYC and we have a reporting. What government is saying is, under income tax, you are already complying at a level of 2 lakhs. Now you have to comply under PMLA at a level of 10 lakhs. And as a result of this, there is no new compliance, because you were already complying at KYC at 2 lakhs. Now, instead of 2 lakhs under PMLA, this threshold is even higher. It is 5 times higher. It is 10 lakhs. So if you comply with income tax, honestly, according to the government, you have no need for any other additional compliance under the PMLA. So if you see the PIB clarification, please forgive my Hindi, but the answer to the query raised is that यह दावा भ्रामक है, that you have to comply in all situations. If you take even one transaction of 10 lakh in a year, the intimation or adhisuchna is only required for a transaction where you transact in cash over 10 lakhs. So I think much of the fear which had been going around for the last few weeks is a fear which should now stand settled. There are still some open issues. There are still people who are worried that can the authorities club my 2, 3, 4 transactions? Can they take me over 10 lakhs? That is an issue which still has to be discussed. Safeguards have to be brought in, and I will discuss in the next few minutes, how that safeguards can also be brought in. But the issues that from 28th, every transaction I need a KYC, that, oh, we have to report every transaction, etc. I think those fears, by what government has issued yesterday, should be settled. And I don't think, therefore, the industry should be in any state of panic at all. Government has been quite quick to clarify what the position is. And if you see in this slide, the last paragraph on the English clarification also, it says we are clarifying that December 28, 2020 notification. The Department of Revenue in the ministry has said cash purchase of jewelry, bullion and precious metals and stone of value more than 2 lakhs is not allowed without KYC in any case. Therefore, no new burden of compliance is being placed on the industry, which was not already there prior to 28 December 2020. So I think that's the position, which is the latest. Let's just also understand a little more about the background, and let's also understand that if we were covered under the PMLA, what would happen. And finally, we'll look at, what maybe GJIPC can take up as next steps in terms of ensuring that all the issues of the industry are addressed. Let's go to the next slide, and let me give you all a little bit of a historical perspective, right? The prevention of money laundering, as all of us know, is one of the most serious laws, not only in India, but globally. And internationally, it is administered by a body which is called the FATF. And FATF is a situation where all the countries of the world come together to control money laundering, essentially to ensure that national security of different nations is preserved and we are able to prevent acts of terrorism. So what they are trying to control is that money should not be moving in an unaccounted or in a non-banked manner, because we want to dry up the sources of funding which ultimately go into terrorism funding. Now, within this, they typically recognize industries which are vulnerable for an activity of money laundering. So let me also very quickly explain what is money laundering. If a person has money which he has generated from a criminal activity, and let us say therefore he has generated 1 crore of rupees. Now it is very, very difficult for them to move this money from one country to another country. So what they normally do is that they do a conversion. So what is the conversion? That they will either try and introduce this money into the banking system, or they will try and buy an asset like foreign exchange, or they will buy some insurance and try and get it encashed in another country, or they invest into gem and jewelry, which is easy to carry, and try and encash it into the other country. What money laundering is trying to prevent is this conversion of money which has come from crime into another asset class, which can then be realized in another country as being official money. So this process of taking what are the proceeds of crime, converting it into an asset so that it can then again be reconverted into official cash somewhere else and be used to fund illegal activities is what is the whole focus of the money laundering law. All countries all across the world are trying to focus on this to eliminate terrorism. Okay. In many countries of the world, they have covered many of the businesses which are vulnerable to such conversion, such as banking, such as insurance, such as forex broking, etc. And in many countries of the world, they have also covered gems and jewelry. In India, in 2013, for the first time, we tried to refer to gems and jewelry, but nothing progressed at that stage. Then in the August of 2017 was the first time that we as an industry were notified in a category called persons carrying on a designated business. Okay. And that is the first time that we were sought to be brought into this particular act. And if we came into this particular act, we would have had a requirement to undertake KYC in certain instances. We would have had to verify details of our clients. We would have had to determine who the beneficial owner of any transaction is. We would have had to maintain records, which we then would also have to file returns, which are monthly returns. Now, at that stage, the jewelers or the dealers in precious stones and metals who were to be brought in were people who in the preceding year had a turnover of 2 crores of rupees. Now at that stage, GJEPC and many other trade associations of the sector, we went to the government and we pointed out to the government to say that, look, firstly, to undertake KYC, to undertake all these issues, there needs to be a lot of training. We need to have IT infrastructure. And if you see that we are a nation of 6 lakh villages, and almost every village has one jeweler, who is also sometimes the person who, in a way, gives loans to people in the community. And out of this 6 lakh, there is not even 10% who have a computer. And the customers who come to them, who are basically householders, women, farmers, that they have no ability for us to do a KYC. This whole law is in that manner impracticable and unworkable. It cannot be worked in our country. We therefore, on this basis, took it up to say, this is not the right time to bring this law in this country because there is such low ability for compliance. We also pointed out that if you see USA or EU, the size of transaction at which they have to do KYC or the size of transaction at which they have to do compliance is $15,000, which if you convert in Indian currency will be 10 lakhs of rupees. So under this law of 2017, you want us to comply at 50,000 rupees for KYC, whereas internationally the compliance is at 10 lakhs of rupees. So even if you are trying to bring an international law under FATF, the yardstick that you must maintain for KYC must be equivalent to what happens in other countries. It must minimum be 10 lakhs of rupees. Because we pointed out a lot of these difficulties, the ministry said, okay, we will appoint PwC. We will get them to do a report on whether this law can be brought for this industry or not. And we said, please do that, but please do not bring it in any circumstance below 10 lakhs of rupees. And at that stage also, we were aware that under income tax, my limit is that over 2 lakhs, I have to do KYC. So if under PMLA, it came that I have to do KYC over 10 lakhs, then really there was nothing additional I had to do because I was already doing it for income tax at 2 lakhs. The net result of that whole exercise, including the PwC report post the whole meetings which they did with the industry, was recommendation was don't go ahead with this. Industry also met some of the senior leaders at that time in the government, and government was good enough to withdraw the notification, and the notification was withdrawn saying, no, we don't want to bring this industry under this. Okay. But as a country, we continue to be under pressure from FATF, saying that, look, we all have PMLA where we have included jewelry. India cannot be the only one who does not include. Therefore, please include. And it seems that that continued pressure, because we are one of the nations, as we all know, where we have suffered more terrorism acts than anyone else. So we are one of the very powerful voices saying, clamp down funding for terrorism. So we cannot say clamp down funding if we don't do what others are doing. So now this has come back again. But this time when it has come back, the criterion that they have said is that the transaction must be more than 10 lakhs. So if we now go to the next slide, which is the language of this particular notification. Can we please go to the next slide? Hello?
Yeah, it's the next slide, Ron.
Yeah. So what this talks about is that who is covered. Now, please understand, under PMLA, there is first a definition of who is covered as a reporting entity. And if you are a reporting entity, then you have to worry about the compliance. If you are not a reporting entity, you don't worry about the compliance. So who is going to be a reporting entity? If you are a dealer in precious metal, precious stone, now this includes jewelry, and you are carrying on business, which is a designated business, if you engage in any cash transaction with a customer equal to or above 10 lakhs, which you have carried out in a single or in a several operation that appear to be linked, then you become a reporting entity. Now, what was understood by the industry and the fear which was there is that even if I undertake one transaction in a year, which is over 10 lakhs, then every transaction of mine will have to go through a KYC if it is more than 50,000. And in our industry, of course, many transactions are over 50,000, given the nature of the goods. So the fear was every transaction of mine and every single rupee will have to be looked at. While that was one view, the other view was you have to be a reporting entity only if the transaction in cash is more than 10 lakhs, whether as one transaction or a set of transactions, and not for every transaction. Now, luckily for us, as I said, yesterday some clarifications have come, which we discussed in the first slide, which again affirms that you will be a reporting entity and you need to comply for transactions which are over 10 lakhs. So not for every transaction and not for every rupee. Okay. Even though they have now given this clarification, there are some open issues which still remain. Firstly, people don't understand what it is meant by when they say if you engage, because in many of the situations in small towns and villages, A jeweler may be selling you jewelry, but he may also be lending you cash. He may also be doing something else with you. Does it mean that any transaction of any type where it is over 10 lakhs, I have to comply? The answer is still uncertain because nobody knows what engage means. Now, second situation, and critically, nobody knows what customer means. Because let us say in income tax, I have recognized, let us say 5 customers who have undertaken transactions each below 2 lakhs. Now that recognition of customer is something income tax accepts. The one question which comes up is, under this act, can somebody say that even though income tax is accepting that these are 5 different customers all under, or 6 different customers all under 2 lakhs, can somebody in PMLA say, I will club these 6 transactions and I will say that no, actually there are no 6 customers, there is only 1 customer, and as a result of that, you should comply with PMLA. Can there be a contradiction, therefore, between the approach under income tax and the approach under PMLA? Or is it that the person who I recognize as a customer and which income tax accepts, that must also be accepted as a customer by PMLA? That right now is unclear. It is also unclear what do you mean by an operation, because if you talk of a customer, then the situation is the transaction I can have with the customer is a sale transaction. And in a sale transaction, I can probably divide up my transaction. But the word that they have used is not transaction. The words that they have used is operations. Now, all of these issues are in a way vague, and all of these issues are uncertain. And quite clearly, the department also recognizes that the way in which this is worded is vague. I know for a fact that CBIC, who has now been nominated, to be the regulator for this, that when certain people made calls to CBIC saying, what does your provision mean? They said, no, we know that there is some amount of uncertainty in the language we have used, so we will clarify. And I think as a result, we saw the clarifications, which we have seen in the first slide. Now, if somebody falls within this, namely they have cash transactions over 10 lakhs, then relevant to them, the regulator will be CBIC. And CBIC will be the person who will look at the compliance related issues, namely KYC, filing of the returns, reporting of suspicious transactions. Now, one thing which is unclear is that suppose somebody breaches this law, will it be CBIC which will act, or will it be ED which will act? Because ED is the one who normally exercises jurisdiction under PMLA. That position is not clear, but whatever little information we are getting from Delhi tells us that CBIC will look at the administrative issues. And of course, if any breach comes up, then that breach is something which is likely to be looked at by ED. But honestly, they are uncertain because they don't have the answers themselves. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, if you do fall under PMLA, and let me be at pains to say, if you fall under PMLA, so please don't misunderstand that I am saying your every transaction will fall under PMLA. If you have a cash transaction over 10 lakhs, then your situation is that you need to undertake a KYC. The amount which has been set under PMLA is at 50,000. But if you see yesterday's clarifications, it seems that for gem and jewelry, the KYC also kicks in over 10 lakhs. Now, we still have to get this in writing from the ministry, but that is what their clarification is suggesting, that you have to comply with KYC if you have a cash transaction over 10 lakhs. Now, if you do come under the act, and there are of course 3 things which happen. One is diligence, which is KYC. And under this rule 3, which says what are the transactions that you now need to be vigilant about and report. You would have to report all cash transactions over 10 lakhs. You would have to report those transactions which are undertaken in cash as a series of transactions within 1 month if they exceed 10 lakhs. And you have to report suspicious transactions. Now, when you do the reporting, you have to, of course, give details, what is the nature of the transaction, amount, date, etc. And you are required to file this under the reporting norms as a return on a monthly basis. So if this month gets over, you have to file by the 15th of next month. And in cases of suspicious transactions, you have to report them within 7 days. Okay. Now, if you are a person who undertakes cash transactions over 10 lakhs, then as per yesterday's clarification, then you need to worry about such compliances. Otherwise, it would appear for the clarifications that you don't need to. Okay. If we now go to the next slide, what is the nature of the KYC that people who are covered under PMLA have to do? You basically need to get either the Aadhaar or any other officially valid document from the purchaser. You have to get their PAN if the PAN is available, or an equivalent document under income tax, which in any case you are doing for cash transactions over 2 lakhs under Income Tax Act, and any other transactions which you believe or documents which you believe will give a proper idea and indication of the nature of business and the financial status of that particular client. Now, this is what you are required to do. The process is a little more electronic because in certain instances, if a customer doesn't have these details or doesn't have proper details, then you need to hook up with a software and a database which is maintained by the government. And in 2017, we had pointed out that it is impossible for most jewelers who don't either have computers or don't even have 24-hour electricity for them to be able to do any of this. So broadly, if you are covered, this is your effective KYC norm. Now, one of the contradictions which we had pointed out in 2017 is that the laws which are coming up for this trade are very confusing, because if we go to the next slide, as a person in the trade, I have different thresholds at which I have to do different things, and that all seemed extremely confusing. So assuming I had to comply, for every transaction over 50,000 to do KYC, then what was my situation? My situation was under income tax. I was subject to CBDT control. And if I had cash transaction over 2 lakhs, I would have to collect the PAN, furnish the PAN, collect TCS, etc. Right? In GST, I am under CBIC. If my turnover is over either 40 lakhs or 20 lakhs, depending on facts, I now need to get a registration. I need to do those compliances. Before yesterday's clarifications, as per the rumors which were going around, if under PMLA, I had to do KYC for every transaction which was above 50,000, which meant in my case almost every transaction, then I had to do KYC from the 50,000 level. And then under the more reporting requirements under PMLA, I had to report what was cash transactions in excess of 10 lakhs. So I would have a KYC at 50,000, a reporting at 10 lakhs, and then I would still have to look at suspicious transactions to report. And we had pointed out in 2017 that this whole situation is resulting in a position for the industry that we just don't know what to comply with when, and the compliances are way too onerous for this industry. If you are a big bank, things are easy. If you are a big insurance company, yes. If you are a big forex broker, those are the guys who were under PMLA. They had the means to comply, but for us, it was becoming difficult. And it is that in this background that we said that even KYC should only happen at 10 lakhs and should not happen at 50,000. Now, yesterday's clarification seems to be that that is what they have now set as the limit. Coming to the open issues, let's go to the next slide. When in 2017, this had come up, we had pointed out to them that, look, there is too much vagueness about even your definition. Even now, if we see it's a vague definition, what do you mean by if you engage in, I don't know who my customer is, I don't know what operations means, I don't know what linked operations mean. That this is too uncertain and too vague, and it means two things. That, practically, if you look at it, let us say a father comes to buy something, a few days later, a son comes to buy something. Must I necessarily always club it? Are they not two individuals, two citizens who can buy two things? What happens in a situation where you say, oh, look at a suspicious transaction? How do I know? I may know that a person is a collector in my town, or he is an income tax commissioner in my town. If he comes with 5 lakhs of cash and says he wants to buy jewelry, or let us say he comes with a certain amount, am I to presume that this money has come from some illegal mean? Then I go and report him. How do I know? He may have inherited it. He may have sold other jewelry. I have no basis to comply with all of this. A big bank can do it, but I can't do it. So we had pointed out that please do not put a burden on us, which is so vague and so difficult that we cannot comply with it. And we had at that stage, of course, also mentioned that, look, even Supreme Court keeps saying that you cannot put a burden on a citizen which is vague and which he is not capable of bearing. So please protect us. And that is why the 2017 issues effectively went. And now we've come to the 2020 set of issues. If you go to the next slide, if I see the issues which still remain open, and those are the ones that we have to factor into the solution. While a PIB tweet has come, while a extract has come in Economic Times, somebody may say that, look, can you say that this is legal and binding? And the answer is, look, there will always be questions. So while they have clarified, and as I said, therefore we don't need to panic, it is very important that as an industry, we get this in writing, confirmed by the Ministry of Finance. And we ask them that what you have put in the PIB and what you have put in the press release should be confirmed to us as DJEPC in writing. That you should confirm to us in writing that it is only for a cash transaction over 10, and you should give us the authority to be able to publish this to the trade so that the fear and panic in the trade is addressed. So one situation is, I think we have to still get this from the ministry officially addressed to us so that, there are no ifs and buts. So that is one thing to be done. There are still some question marks that, industry will have, saying, okay, what if I am over 10? Though practically, I don't think that is possible at all, given the income tax provision. So I think the second thing that we need to do is to approach the government, Ministry of Finance, with whatever may be the questions that the industry still has, even knowing that, yes, you have to only comply for a cash transaction over 10 lakhs, so that we can get FAQs from the government, like happened in so many cases for GST, that whatever were our queries, we took them to government, and in a series of FAQs, those were answered. So that, again, we have something from government, and, we are not shuttling from one consultant to the other and one lawyer to the other, everyone giving different views, so that we have clarity that, yes, it only applies over 10 lakhs and all our FAQs are answered. Now, what that then also leaves is the issue in terms of what and when can this clubbing happen. when can they club the different transactions? Now, in terms of, the open issues or difficulties, this slide 9 has some. If you go over the page, next slide, we have a few more issues which come up, especially for jewelers who deal in rural India, because 60-70% of our jewelers are in rural India, and their clients actually have almost no records from government. We also still have about 30% of population, which I think now may have reduced further, who don't have Aadhaar. As far as PAN is concerned, of course, almost 92% don't have PAN. So, how do we go about it? And there were also issues raised by retail outlets, which have either franchise arrangements or multiple stores. Because how do they know who is coming? They may do biometrics, they may not do biometrics, but they can only be as vigilant as they are capable of being. I cannot suspect every customer who comes and put a detective behind every customer. So these are issues which still remain. But if we are able to get the clarifications that we are talking about, and therefore let's go to the last slide. See, the ideal situation is that like we got in 2017, we should get a withdrawal. But I think that given the pressure which is there from FATF, they will have to come through with some provision. And I think they've come through with a provision which is much higher than our income tax compliance. So actually, it may not have any impact at all. So one is to try for withdrawal, but if we can't try for withdrawal, when I did this, I said option 2 is give time. But yesterday's clarification places us in a much better position. I would personally think that GJPC and the trade should now really focus on 3 things. One, please clarify what you have said in PIB officially in writing to us. 2, we have a few questions which are still left. Please answer them as a FAQ. And 3, on this clubbing of transactions, most of you will remember that when the excise issues came, there was a committee, and GJPC had and GJC had nominated some people from trade, and they had also nominated me. And one of our fears was that, people are stopped on the road, our goods are seized, people who don't understand our trade threaten us with arrest, threaten us with seizure. Same way, we now have a risk that somebody who doesn't know will club. And the way we answered it in the excise was that we agreed with MOF that these powers will not be left to junior officers who could harass us. That at least 2 senior officers, like a commissioner level, will meet. They will consider whether clubbing should happen. And if they say that, yes, this case looks suspicious, let there be clubbing, then only then can clubbing happen. See, we cannot as an industry say we will face no scrutiny, no investigation, no compliance. What we can say is keep the threshold high, which they have done at 10 lakhs. Now we can say, please safeguard us from abuse and misuse, where we need to sit with them to say, please work out a mechanism like you did in excise, that at least 2 senior officers will sit. They will take a decision whether clubbing is justified, so that there is a safeguard in the system, and so that, there is no abuse. And once we got that mechanism in excise, quite honestly, we had almost no instances of any irrational or abusive actions taken. So let me end here. I think there was a lot of panic last week. Since last night, I don't think there is reason to panic. And hopefully in the next 3 to 4 days, through the efforts of GJPC and other trade associations, other issues will also get clarified, and we will all be able to sort of proceed on the basis that this only applies about 10 lakhs transaction, and KYC is only needed in that case, and compliance is only needed in that case. So let me stop here and hand this back to Colin to take it forwards from here.
You can take the presentation of the screen. Yeah. So thanks, Rohan. I think that was excellently captured in your 10 slides. I hope this gives trade, I guess, a lot to mull over. and hopefully they'll have a restful weekend knowing that it's not as bad as it seems. We will take your inputs obviously extremely seriously, and over the next week represent to the various government departments and hopefully lean on you again to try and get all these clarifications for the industry as soon as possible. So on that note, I don't, because you covered everything so beautifully, Rohan, we haven't got, any or much questions from the trade. And the few questions I got, I think you covered them in the last 2, 3 slides. So at GJPC, we remain at your service. And if there's anything after this, which you all feel you all still need clarifications on, feel free to email us. We will reach out to Rohan and answer you back as soon as possible. So thanks, Rohan, on this Saturday to come and
Thank you.
spend time with us. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, Colin.